Hi, scholars, community at large, and passionate advocates for the deaf community. It's my honor to speak with you for a few minutes. My name is Trevor Potts. I'm a faculty member with the Department of Communication Studies at IU Indianapolis. I'm also the Director of Civic Engagement for our department. I'm just going to offer some insights to speak to the issues raised by this very, very important collaboration in the capstone class here about language barriers and media literacy as it relates to the deaf community. I'm going to try to synthesize some of the questions that have been posed to me, and so hopefully this will be valuable. So first of all, and I'll try to be brief here. One of the questions is there a trend within society that you see as particularly limiting to the spread of media literacy? I would say these are twofold. First of all, a splintered media system and media ecosystem that has emerged over the last 30 or 40 years, I think is tremendously damaging and counteractive to civic dialogue. And I think that leads us, we've heard these terms, echo chambers and filter bubbles. I think that people become very comfortable with these and don't question these as much as we should, that we are obligated to do so. Now, I think that that's the number one, the hyperpolarization of society as it relates to new media emergence and new media ecosystems. And then that is is doubled when you add in groups that have a language barrier or the deaf community, because so much of the messages that are sent, there is a loss of cues, of nonverbal cues, verbal and nonverbal cues sometimes from source to receiver that might leave out certain populations. And so I think it's very imperative to try to consider these populations. You might call them oftentimes lesser foregrounded populations, including the deaf community, including people with physical disabilities, including marginalized groups of any way, shape, or form. I think those are always very, very important if you want to have an equitable conversation and one that leads to understanding of the other. We need to consider these voices in the conversation, and so I think that's incredibly important. In terms of implementing equal access, actually, I would love to learn from this group. I think this is a very, very important project. So I'd love to hear about ways that we could move forward in terms of an ethical design of social media that would include algorithms that would encourage discussion and debate between all populations and not just ones that do not have hearing loss, or not just ones who are lesser acknowledged populations in this conversation. In terms of appropriate communication strategies to address this, it all goes back to me for a concept by Martin Buber, philosopher Martin Buber, called dialogic ethics, which is trying to move beyond viewing the other as a them or a they or as an other, and trying to, when there's disagreement, to at least come to some understanding. They call it, Martin Buber calls this a narrow ridge of understanding, which does not guarantee that people will get along, but it will allow us even momentarily to understand maybe the issues, the thoughts, the life experiences that brought one person to this place. And that is key to media literacy, I think, is to not simply take things at face value, media messages, but to also understand, or make an effort to understand what brought a person to this place to design said message or to have said bias. And that's important in terms of reading these things, because there are now in the world we live in, it's harder and harder to decipher truth. I mean, we know the basic strategies for this, to go to multiple sources, to always fact check. But in this world where it is increasingly fast, the information and so forth, it becomes both more difficult and also more burdensome, more cumbersome, I think, for a lot of people to assume that, even those of us who know that we should. And also, there's something called the third person effect, where we think that other people are more affected by media messages than we are, or by media bias than we are. And so, and that's across the board. So, media literacy being effective, how can we promote that? Exactly what you are doing, team, and I applaud you for doing this. And again, going back to the first question here, the current climate of media literacy in a technologically advanced and diverse world. Again, it all goes back to this a system where it has become commercially viable to foreground divisive voices or spectacular voices, and not to give attention, due attention to civil voices. Civil discourse is incredibly important, especially in this day and age. We have an election this week. We all know that all too well. And so I think that it's incredibly important to strive for media literacy, to try to include all groups in this conversation, to work hard to implement equal access and equity in terms of media literacy. And that's where I'd like to turn to you and to learn from you in this project, because I think that's incredibly important, and I applaud you for that. And it is a diverse world. We need these perspectives. That's what makes us stronger as a country, as a world, and also as a family. And so, I do applaud you for this project. I hope these thoughts are helpful in some way for you, and I can't wait to see, to look at this resource, this website, and to learn about ways to implement equal access to media literacy for all individuals, including the deaf community. So thank you for allowing me to be a part, and have a wonderful day.